Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 2022 commencement of Studio Incamminati. I am Bob Thomas. I'm the interim executive director for the school right now, and I have to say I've been here 3 weeks, and it's been an unbelievable experience. This morning, I actually was working with Rob Goodman and with pencil in hand, and I have a true appreciation for what you guys go through. I mean, putting those stick figures together and boxes and stuff like that, oh my gosh. I can't tell you how many times I erased and looked back. It doesn't look like the model, but it was fun. It was fun. It was really good. I could see how you can definitely get sucked into this art in this industry, in this arena, and it's wonderful to be here. I am so happy. Yesterday, I also had the opportunity to watch our graduates make their presentations of their work. And again, another wonderful education of what motivated them, their innovation, their creativity, and the critiques that were given as well, learning from those gentlemen. A lot was going over my head. I had no idea what they were talking about. But it was fun, and I ended up really learning about different colors and light and all these different things and what was going on. So this is an absolutely wonderful institution, and I am so happy to be here and be able to help get the word out about Studio Incamminati and all the great work that everyone does here in the community that we have built here. With that said, I would like to now move on and introduce our Dean of Fine Arts, Dan Thompson, who will take it from here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all very much. It's great to see you here. I have a number of people to thank. I want to start out by welcoming both in-person and virtual guests to this year's commencement ceremony. I also want to recognize the family members of our graduates-to-be who are here in the audience. You're genuine sources of strength for our graduates. I know that you've walked many of our soon-to-be graduates back from the brink on many occasions, but this is a moment of celebration of their achievements, but it's also a moment for your achievements because you've lived with them and you've stoked this dream that they've had to become great artists. So we congratulate you, we recognize you, we thank you for being here to support them. I also want to thank the faculty for all you've done. Most of you are virtual. Again and again, often unrecognized and often as well in good faith. You've added that personal dynamism that is so often wanted in teaching. It's rarely articulated and even more rarely met. This exhibition in the hallway, in large part, represents your ceaseless generosity and reflects your profound guidance. So thank you to the faculty. I want to thank the administration for this year's abundant energy and effort behind the scenes, contributing so much to the dynamism of this program. I want to thank the board of directors, whose belief in and support of Incamminati is unwavering and life-changing. And I have a brief story about this, which kind of takes me off script. I was teaching a workshop here in 2013. It was a red chalk workshop. And we, as teachers, all have our favorite lines we like to deliver as we teach and demo. And one of mine was, I was trying to actually take the idea of drawing and take the intimidation factor out of it, So I would say, come on, it's not like we're curing cancer here. Loosen up, just draw, have a good time. And I got to know the students, as I always do, and tried to delve a bit more deeply into their stories during the workshop over the course of as many days. And I talked to the wife of a husband and wife couple that were in the workshop, and she told me about what brought them to the workshop. She said, he's stage 3, he needs this. So after she said that, I never again had that line. I just, I recognize that this is life-changing, what we're doing. It's life-affirming. It's amazing. So I also want to thank the speakers, the VIP guests for the Bennett Schmidt Lectures on the Higher Aim of Arts, and to our esteemed very first artist in residence this year, Daryl Smith. I want to thank the dedicated monitors of all the classes. I especially want to thank our models for all they do for the school. Thank you all so much for being here. I also want to issue a thanks to the visiting critics, one of whom you saw yesterday. We had a great time yesterday in the hallways and the corridors. And the final thank you goes to a resounding gesture of gratitude goes to Nelson and Leona Shanks, who founded Incamminati 20 years ago. 20 years we've been here. So it's my honor now to welcome our former president, James Savoy, who'd like to say a few words to the graduating class this year. Jim?
Thank you. I crafted a 25-minute speech. I hope it's all right. Thanks for having me back, Dan. I was really pleased when Dan reached out to me, asked me if I would show up today to congratulate the graduates. You know, the work that you've done is the work that I saw coming in the door 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago, and to watch where you've come from even that point is really incredible. That you've done great work. It's great to see the show up. You know, lives are filled or made up of many moments, right? And sometimes those moments sort of skate by and we don't really think much about them, but this is a particular moment you should really think about. This is the kind of moment where you stand still for a minute and you look backward at what you've done and you look forward at what you want to do. And I just encourage you to revel in this moment as you think about what you've done, what you have planned for your future, and take pride in both of those. It's really a special moment, and they call it commencement for a reason, right? You're commencing something, the rest of your lives, your professional careers. I know some of you are hanging on as fellows, and I look forward to coming back and seeing the work that you're developing as a fellow and as you launch your career. So to all of you, congratulations and best of luck. I think it's my job now to introduce the friend and colleague and board chair, William Daniels.
So I attend a Quaker meeting called Haverford Monthly Meeting, and it's associated with Haverford College, has been since its inception. And every year about this time, the alumni return to campus and come to the meeting for Sunday worship. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Quaker practice, it's done in silence. It's very quiet, it's meditative, it's about an hour long. And nobody speaks unless the Spirit moves you. So this one meeting, this one Sunday, this meeting was full of graduates, alumni, and one after another they stood up to say what a wonderful oasis this meeting room was, what fond memories of quiet and peaceful and tranquilness it had for them. And this went on all meeting long until finally one individual stood up and said, "These are not my memories. My memories are ones of strife and struggle, because this is where I came to confront myself." And as I share this with y'all because I think there's a great parallel between what his experience was and what you, the artists, go through. You stand as the artist. Most people, when they see an artist standing by the riverbank painting, they think, oh, how idyllic, how peaceful, how creative. But you, the artists, are essentially standing there naked, struggling with yourselves, trying to get something on the canvas. And it's a constant struggle. It makes Jacob's wrestling with the angel look like a little roll in the head. And so I stand here full of admiration and gratitude for the great art that struggle has given us, and say thank you. Dan?
Hey all, my name's Dan. I'm the Director of Operations here at Studio Incamminati. I'm also a student, and I'll be pretty brief. I'll continue with some of the other thoughts about thankfulness, just thanks to the artists. Just seeing what people do really makes the job a lot of fun. There's also some student workers who do a lot of the stuff around here. We have a fairly small budget, as everybody may know, so we rely on student workers to do a lot of stuff. Laundry, cleaning up the studios, booking models and all that kind of stuff. And as a student, I did some of those also. So I would like to give a small gift to some of those students and The first would be Sarjan. He does our studio cleanup. I remember our first day, he's coming from Nepal, he's coming up right now. Yeah, like I remember a little bit of a difficulty, him getting into the States. I remember on maybe like the first day he got here, he called me, he was like, "Where do I stay?" I was like, "I thought we figured this out." So I'm struggling, trying to figure out where we're gonna put him up for the night. And I think James actually picked him up from the airport. Yeah, it's been uphill from there, always willing to help out. And yeah, Sarjan, thank you so much. And our next recipient is Gabby. She does all the drapery stuff. We have to clean a lot of stuff around here. Models can't sit on chairs without something being draped over for cleanliness. So it's a constant thing. We have to pull tape. It's a whole thing. And it's especially helpful, I'll say this about Sarjan also, it's helpful when people do it without talking to me about it and asking me questions. They take the initiative. It's not necessary, but it is very much appreciated. Gabby only comes to me when we need detergent. I'm like, "Oh crap, I need detergent." And it takes me a couple days, and I imagine you stretch it out a little bit, maybe pour some water in there, which is also appreciated. But thank you so much. And the final work-study student has been here for 4 years, Scott Woyak. He's graduating now. He is the model coordinator, and he has revolutionized how we coordinate models. I'm not kidding. It used to be phone calls, and if somebody doesn't show up, everyone scrambles. But he's got spreadsheets, automatic calling, automatic texts. It's great. I mean, it's crazy. And then with a lot of stuff around here, there's usually like a phone call to me or to James, Bob, Dan. I mean, you know that when something sort of goes haywire a little bit, and it just never happens. It never gets to me. I never hear about it. And in addition to that, he created, when we went online, he created a software for a model feed, because our Zoom feed during the pandemic wasn't high resolution enough. So he, former software something, I'm not even sure, but whipped something up. So now we use that feed as well as the Zoom feed, and it's just been great. Thank you so much. We have this. So that's a gift certificate to Irwin's upstairs. So there's those that don't know, there's a bar and restaurant on the roof. Have fun. And there's also some more gifts actually in the office that I forgot. But yeah, thank you everyone. And I guess now I'll leave it over to Dan. Thank you.
All right, so what we're going to do now is introduce the commencement speaker for today's festivities. It's going to be Odd Nerdrum. So it's interesting because for the longest time we've been doing virtual everything, and we walked around in hazmat suits for months and months, and gradually things have come back to in-person. We still have a virtual speaker this year. So I want to introduce Odd Nerdrum and tell you a bit about him before we roll the tape. So Odd Nerdrum was born April 8, 1944 as a Norwegian painter born in Sweden and considered to be one of the greatest living classical figurative painters. Themes and style in Nerdrum's work reference anecdote and narrative. Primary influences by the painters Rembrandt and Caravaggio help place his work in direct conflict with the abstraction and conceptual art considered acceptable in much of Norway. Nerdrum creates 6 to 8 paintings a year. They include still life paintings of small everyday objects like bricks, portraits and self-portraits, which this is an example of, and large paintings, allegorical and apocalyptic in nature. The figures in Nerdrum's paintings are often dressed as if from another time and place. Nerdrum was born in Helsingborg, Sweden, and educated at the Rudolf Steiner School and later the Art Academy of Oslo. Disillusioned with the art form taught at the Academy and with modern art in general, Nerdrum began to teach himself how to paint in a postmodern style with Rembrandt and Caravaggio as influences. In 1965, he began a several-month study with the German artist Joseph Beuys. Nerdrum says that his art should be understood as kitsch rather than as art as such. On Kitsch, a manifesto composed by Nerdrum, he describes the distinction he makes between kitsch and art. Nerdrum's philosophy has spawned the kitsch movement among his students and followers who call themselves kitsch painters rather than artists. Nerdrum's work is held in public collections worldwide, including the National Gallery of Oslo, the Astrup Fearnley Museum of Modern Art in Oslo, the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden in Washington, D.C., the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the Museum of Contemporary Art in San Diego, and the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis. Nerdrum is represented by Forum Gallery in New York. When I spoke to Odd and his wife and his son about speaking for you today, he was so enthusiastic that he sent us an hour-long videotape of an in-depth interview. And I thought, why don't we shorten this just a little bit? So just get the highlights of it. So this is about 19 minutes, and I hope you enjoy it.
So on the one hand, you have Odysseus meeting this princess Nausicaa and asking, who are you? Are you a goddess or a human being? Mm-hmm. And then on the other hand, you have this thing that happens if you think you are superior to the gods.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking about. When we're talking about late Rembrandt or late Constable, then Titian, to stick to those, we're talking about this Technica Machia. Mm. And it was just an interesting example of that myth in practice when there were some students of you who thought that they had 30-year advantage on you, starting with a late Titian much earlier than you did. And so they could become even better. And their whole technique and the whole work just fell apart because they thought they were the gods. They thought they were on a much higher level than they actually were. They didn't take the empirical study to get to that level, right?
You can look at Picasso and Munch, for example. Munch, the man with the scream, that he in many ways had a very sad end of his life and also Picasso. It's just like they had been burning out in some ways. Yeah. And if you look at Titian and Rembrandt, they were at the top until they died, and they made the masterpiece just before they died. The Pieta of Titian and the prodigal son of Rembrandt. So they were in the highest level just before they died. Mm. But you can't say that about Picasso, because that was really, he was burning out from 30 years old and so on, and he burned out. So, and that is because they didn't follow their personal instinct. They will probably follow the society's instinct, but not the personal instinct, because in the personal way, you have to be better every day. Mm. You have to improve. Every day you have to improve.
Well, that's the way of the discipline, not the personal way, but the way of the discipline, the way of the craft. Or
well, you can say that if you are longing for improvement, you will have no problems with that. It is hard, but you have to be better. You can't. It's something very problematic here, because to be better, what is that? Yes, you can follow Aristotle's ideas there, that you have the nature. And the nature is a sort of measurement for you. Just like you have this 1 meter in Paris, because every carpenter has to agree about the meter.
Yeah, so there's a standard meter.
Yes, of course, because
there.
if there wasn't a standard, all the houses would fall apart, you see. You understand? It's yeah. So I think there is a sort of a human factor, this, to improve is the most wonderful thing you can have in sight, you see. Because the other things doesn't work, really.
But then you need to know what the goal of that improvement is, because you need to study nature, but we've been talking about many times throughout the years about how if you are a naturalist and you think that describing everything is to be a good painter, then you're going the wrong way.
But
So
to be a naturalists are very opaque.
Yeah.
That's the problem with the naturalists, because they just describe, you can call them very passive copyists.
They
are
don't add
passive.
storytelling or add pathos or dramaturgy.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the reason is that you have a melody and you can arrange a symphony orchestra, but you have to have a melody or something of a theme that grips even yourself in some ways.
Yeah, so an author who is only concerned with the correct grammar and has no story, that's a tragedy, right?
It was
or not a tragedy.
I heard about Herman Melville.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and his manuscript looked like hell when the publisher got it.
Yeah.
So they had to restore the whole thing. You see.
It was a technique of macka in writing.
Yeah, very. We are talking about empiric understanding. When we talk about empiric work, it is just that you make something, and the next day you see that it has to be remade, and the next day it has to be remade, scraped out, and then you continue to paint, scrape out, continue to paint. A lot of layers and a lot of scraping. He called it, my son called it a sort of, what do you do when you are having a spade in your hand, you know, you grow, you try to get deeper into it, you see.
Digging.
Digging. So you are digging and digging and digging, and people probably think you are totally crazy, but you are after the absolute expression. That is possible to get. You don't leave it like a sort of a presentation and something modern thing that you present something, but you represent again and again. In Metropolitan Museum, you see, there is several rooms for several countries and cultures. So you see the Indians from America, they have a lot of big, beautiful things, and it's in very good shape. And you go to the Japanese culture, that room, very good shape. You go to the African, with all the African sculptures, perfect shape, everything is fine. So you go into the Greek room, and it looks like they have gone through a big, big war, because you can see an arm here, a torso without a head, you see. Totally destroyed. Everything is under the way to be totally destroyed. It was attacked all the time, several times actually. So you see, when you come into the Greek room, It's not like all the other rooms, because they are perfect, all of them. There is not a glass that is broken. Coming to the Greeks, everything is broken. So it must be something strange with the human mind that doesn't accept such a perfect world in some ways. So they have to destroy it. And then I ask you, what do you think about that?
Why that situation is, I don't know, but it seems to be a problem for people that they seek the truth.
Something is very strange.
And that truth with this monotheism has become something abstract. So there's a threat from, that's why you have this idea of not worshipping images because it's a competition with God. You have St. Augustine going to the see a Greek tragedy. Afterwards, he is shocked over himself because he forgot God. He was so gripped by it. I don't know why this situation is in a human being, but it apparently is.
I wonder. I wonder something. Perhaps if you took away this one God that follows after you all the time with his sincerity, that looks really suspicious. Not very. I mean, and you drop it totally. And you goes back to the god of the thunder, the god of the sun, the god of the earth, blah, blah, blah. And then you will relax. And then you are going into the wheel. And perhaps that is the way to be a harmonic person again. Because in this world, with this extremely powerful idea about the linear world, which is not organic, you have always trouble with your mind, with yourself, because you yourself is a part of something bigger than the linear time. So you can see in the last pictures of Titian, and also in Rodin's Bourgeois de Calais and Rembrandt, that the clothes, you know, the jackets or something, it's not so exactly painted as some of these Hollandaise people that could painters could make silk, you see.
Yeah, and the chessboard floors.
So
and,
it could make women crazy. It's so delicate and so wonderful. But Rembrandt doesn't do that, and Titian doesn't do that at last. In his last pictures, it's just hanging something here. But it doesn't really, are not really defined so exactly. It's a little bit clumsy in some ways. Because it shall not take attention from the face and from the drama, you see. Yeah. So it's sort of something has to be superior. And what is superior? Yes, that the human expression. You see, that is the superior. Rembrandt, I have heard you said to one of your friends that Rembrandt, the little ice time was still in Holland, so therefore all the Rembrandt figures, they were freezing. So they had to have so much fur and everything. So
they're sitting in front of the fireplace all the time.
You could just see the hands here, you know, a little bit of the glimpse of the hair, of the hands, and then you see the face, and you don't see the body at all. It doesn't exist in some ways.
And maybe that, depending on the level you're at, it's easy to think that, you have to show that you know a lot of anatomy and you can't hide it with a lot of clothes and so on. And Rembrandt is cheating with all those clothes.
He's actually using the little ice time very well.
To his advantage,
Yeah. So the result of what he is talking about is that a good picture is something that is eternal. That this it's a sort of a hierarchy, and you have to follow that hierarchy. Because if you don't do that, if you are a typical geocentric person, like the politicians, they are very much in the geocentric era.
Yeah.
Then you have to strive to get a little touch of heliocentric, a little touch of it. I don't think many people can reach it really. It's so few. And therefore they have no power, these heliocentric people. You have 70% of egocentrics. You have 30% of geocentric. The geocentric can never win if they can't get a little bit of the 70%, the masses, you see. So that is the problem. They must always talk nicely to the 70%. And on the top, you have the heliocentric, and that is so little that isn't even 1 of 1,000. It's 1 of millions, perhaps. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And there is something strange here, because people don't like to hear these things, because we live in a very Marxistic time, where there are Marxistic rules. You hear it in the radio every time, that the Marxists are following after people. They have to be born very poorly, and they have a big career, and that's right. But you can't be born as a lord of something, because then you will be evil the rest of your life. All this Marxistic trouble.
Oppressor oppressed.
That the Frankfurt School has made a lot of talk about, all in America, in the South America, all over the world. They have made propaganda for this, that, as Jesus said, the little shall be the big one, and the big one shall be little. You know, that is in the Christian program in some ways. And Marx is just a follower of the Christianity. It had to come, the Marxism, because
of Christianity.
The Christianity was falling apart. For a second time. First it was when the Renaissance was coming, and then it was when Rousseau, Voltaire, David, all these people, before the revolution in France, Christianity was totally destroyed in many ways among the people that had, So therefore, you can say that we are living still in a Christianity tyranny in some ways, through Marx, because the end of the history is more or less the same, both for Christianity and for Marx, that everybody shall be happy at last, get rid of problems and all these things.
So what is the solution to that?
No, but like this Smith and Locke and these people, they were talking about the reality, about the working class.
Right, yeah.
And if they could have a chance, it would be solved in a very decent way. But Marx was a dreamer. I have read a lot of Marx. He talked about manufacture all the time. He had his ground in that. But his dreams was to make a superhuman, as you can see on the poster of the revolution in Russia. The big, strong worker takes over, takes over the power. The bourgeois time is over, and now it comes the working class people. And now we are in some ways in a part of a totally Marxistic way of thinking. Not you and me, but in general. So the bad one shall be the best, and the good one shall be the bad one.
Yeah. But it's a strange thing because I've been thinking about that when we talk about the Frankfurter School and this has developed or morphed into what now is called woke and these things. But when you see what happens then in general society now more and more, this is what we've been living with within the art world then for 150 years. That the level that the knowledge level that you have to enter has dropped dramatically because skill is something old-fashioned and you don't need it anymore. So it has dropped dramatically, and that is just that same principles that is applied to the rest of society today. So that if someone really knows something and is skilled, he is in the Marxist idea put into the role as the oppressor.
Yeah.
Because there's a demand there for you also to become better, right?
Mm.
All right. A good picture is eternal. Words to live by. So I want to recognize at this time the graduates this year. I want to bring the board and our executive director and anyone else who wants to join us up to shake their hand. I'd like to recognize Pattie Remmey. Is she here? Pattie's not here. Okay. Well, that's too bad. We'll see her in the hallway. So maybe we could get on this side. What do you think? In front of the screen? Okay. So I want to say a word about our graduates really quickly. Our second individual we're so proud of who's graduating today is Matthew Riggs. Coming up, Matt. Who's... So Matt, whose deep conviction for the downtrodden translates into nearly mythic depictions of humanity in his paintings. One of my favorite Stephen Perkins lines is the ability of one's students to sense insincerity from a mile away. He calls it bullshit detectors. Students have bullshit detectors. But the opposite is also true. So the sincerity of your work is nearly tangible, and it's a warning to, but also an appeal to civilization to awaken and fulfill its capacity to deliver something beautiful. Congratulations. Okay. Scott's turn. Come on up, Scott. Scott Woyak, who searches for balance. The thoughtfulness for the artist's model in your work is an inspiration. By welcoming each of them as collaborators, you brought a kind of balance of thematic exploration to your work, so that you may respond to certain characteristics while you discover others through their eyes. What a marvelous practice to continue developing. Congratulations. Okay. Let's turn you around. You hold one side, I'll hold the other. Okay. Good? All right. Keep going. And last but certainly not least, Justin, please come on up. Justin Kapp, at the conclusion of your final thesis critique yesterday, the notion of heroism was brought up. It again reminded me of Robert Henry, who I keep talking about, when he describes art in a devotional way. Henry uses the provocative phrasing when he elaborates on the ideal art school, quote, stimulating in students a more profound study of life, activity, and moral courage. Invention in expression to fit the idea expressed, and to the student he assigns the mission of taking their work as a matter of vital importance to the world. Your figure work with its powerful cast of antecedents may in the future be enabled better by bypassing them through honing in on what inspired Haley, Hannaford, Weiss, and Thayer, I call it moral courage, manifested in the heroic nude. Congratulations. This concludes our commencement ceremony. Thank you again for coming. Please make sure to be here tonight at 6 p.m. for the opening of Exhibition Perfectus. Thank you again.